Since its launch in November 2015, Fresh is the Word has been a documentation of sorts for me, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier, as I journey through my love of music and pop culture, as well as using this platform to share my growth on topics important to me, which includes topics involving women's rights, people of color, and the LGBT community through the artistic lens of pop culture. As an ever-evolving podcast, I'm going back to my roots, focusing more on the music artists I'm passionate about from the past and present. From the classic hip-hop artists I grew up on, to the new faces of dance. And from the metal bands I've long appreciated, to the indie alternative artists stealing my heart. Fresh is the Word aims to tell the stories of those who need their contributions to music known, while also exposing my audience to the next artist to watch out for. Sometimes before they blow up.
Fresh is the word.
Welcome to the Fresh is the Word podcast. I'm your host, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier. And like always, we have the freshest of guests for you. And for this episode, I'm joined by Skynd, lead singer and one half of the Industrial-Tinged, true crime-inspired electronic duo also known as Skynd. This is a dark creative outlet for Skynd, along with producer and multi-instrumentalist Father. Each single and accompanied video are titled after the name and place of the true crime subject. Skynd released Chapter 1 in 2018, where they tackled Richard Ramirez, Gary Heidnick, and Elisa Lam. And then in 2019, they released Chapter 2, in which they tackled the cases of Catherine Knight, Tyler Hadley, and Jim Jones. And recently, with over 18 million hits on YouTube, Michelle Carter marks the second single of Chapter 3, following 2020's Columbine. Skynd is unique in a way of releasing their singles one at a time because so much detail goes into their creations, as Skynd does heavy research on each subject and then must condense it all into a song and a video along with her collaborator Father. During our conversation, we talked about how her upbringing led into an interest into these true crime subjects, how she met Father, the process that goes into every song and video, and the creative outlet she feels doing this Skynd project, along with so much more. It was great talking with her. So, without further ado, after a quick word from our sponsor, we'll get into this interview with Skynd. And now a brief word from our sponsor. Founded in 2015, 20 by 20 Apparel seeks to bring original tributes to pro wrestling's classic arenas, moments, and events. They look to spotlight the biggest, smallest, strangest, and strongest. They also provide an array of services. In the world of wrestling, where there are hundreds of shirts, promotions, flyers, social media accounts, and ads, don't get lost in the sea of parody shirts and display fonts. They can provide professional graphic design services at a reasonable price. 20 by 20 also hand screen prints all of their tees in-house. If you would like to discuss a possible run of tees, posters, koozies, foam fingers, even Zubaz, then drop them a line. Go to 20by20apparel.com. That's the number 20, the letter X, the number 20, apparel.com. All right, welcome back to the Fresh is the Word podcast. And like always, we have the freshest of guests for you. And my guest is someone I've wanted to talk to for a long time. It's Skynd. Skynd is this project that is like a true crime inspired music, rock, electronic, project that tackles all these stories about, crime from the past. And it's very interesting. It's very, very, just unique. And I have Skynd with me right now. So how you doing?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, I've been from the first, video single you put out for, during the Chapter 1 era, I was like, yo, this is so cool. And it's like so many, I'm not necessarily a true crime person who, listen to all the podcasts and stuff that's out there, but I'm like that other person who likes theatrics and music. You know, I like people who like you know, dress up, have face paint, do these sort of things like that. Like have this whole like kind of universe, this whole thing that's kind of going on, and that's what I was like really drawn to with Skinned. I was like, yo, this is cool. It's like it's just this whole other thing, but it's this whole like theatric thing, but tackling like these specific stories and like with a lot of stuff like that that I listen to, like there's been other people that does the same thing, but like they're just doing it like within an album. You're doing
Mhm.
it like directly, you know. It's like
Yeah.
boom. Like how did like just the idea of doing this the way that you're doing it, because you're not you're you're kind of like putting out these singles
Hmm.
and putting them like in chapters. You're not like putting out an album and
Mm-mm.
you have a video for each one of them. Like where
Hmm.
did this idea come from? Because it's so great.
Um, you know, the idea came from when I was a young child, when my imaginary friend appeared. I was like, I don't know, I was 3, 4 years old when I first saw him. He introduced him as Skinned. And, over the years, he showed me all the bad in the world. And that weighted really heavily on me, like all those stories he told me about,
Yeah.
Gary Heidnik. I mean, I was 5 or 6 years old when he told me this story for the very first time. So I had to find something to get it off my chest. That's when I started to write lyrics and music. I started to create something to get my creativity going. And that's how I started. And then I think it was 5 years ago, I met Father, my producer. He's the multi-instrumentalist who's working with me. It's just not me, it's also with Father. I met him in Australia at a bush party, I think they call it in Australia. And he was sitting on a rock, rocking back and forth. He was super weird, but like I had to find out who that guy was because I felt this immediate connection to him
Yeah.
somehow. So I walked to him and I was sitting down next to him and I introduced myself and I was like, "Hey, my name's Skinned. Who are you?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm F." And I was like, "That's interesting." So we started talking. We found out that we are having like the same interest in true crime. And the next day we went to the studio, started working together and writing songs, and it worked out like unbelievably great. We had, as I said before, we had this immediate connection, like this. It's almost like a twin flame connection, but without um, the romantic side of it.
Yeah.
And that's how it came to be. And, I told him about this idea I had for a very long time due to my imaginary friend. And I told him, I want to write songs about true crime. I want to sing songs about serial killers, about mass shootings, about maybe victims, about missing persons, everything that is connected to true crime. And he loved it. He loved the idea because when I told people about this idea before, everyone was like laughing at me and they were like, "No, you can't do that. You can't." And I never understood why I can't, because there's so many documentaries or like movies out there,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, um,
So
about true
many.
crime and podcasts as well. And I was like, why can I not just sing about it? Because I'm not romanticizing it. I stay true to facts.
Yeah.
And that was really important to me. And he was the only one understanding. And then I told him, how do you feel like, because it's such a visual project as well, uh, I want to have a video to every song. Like every single needs to have a video because I want to show people how I see, or how I, you can say see the case itself.
Yeah.
And it's super visual. And in the beginning, I also had the feeling like, my music is hard to understand if you just listen to it. So that's why I was like, no, we need a video to each song, and that's how it came to be. Yeah,
When you were a child, you're first
yeah.
having these thoughts. This, your imaginary friend was coming through, like skinned. What
Hmm.
like what was everything else in your life like? What were like the thought, like kind of like what was the culture like? Was there things you're already seeing in life that you were like, no, I don't agree with that. That has to be different. Or, these people they're wrong about this. Or, there's some sort of, prejudice about some of that. Did you experience any of that when you were young?
No, I didn't actually. Like when I grew up, when I got a little older, I lived at a place where that was really hard for me to understand. I lived in a place where there was a kindergarten, and next to this kindergarten, there were like junkies doing heroin or
Yeah.
morphine or how you call that, yeah. And they were shooting it up, and I was like, there's a kindergarten, so that's the good thing. And then you have these junkies, in this bad situation. I'm not saying that those people are bad people, but
Right.
it's just the difference between the children playing on the other side and the junkies living the worst life on the other side.
Yeah, there's a
And
horrible
then
juxtaposition right
it's a
there.
horrible, exactly. And that's when I started to realize we're living in a world where both sides exist. They coexist with each other, but we don't talk about the negative side. We don't talk about the bad sides. We only focus on the good side. People always try to turn a blind eye on the bad stuff happening in the world.
Yeah,
And
and people are probably like, those people who are shooting up, they're bad people or whatever. They were probably saying at the time, when you don't know their stories,
no,
like,
exactly. But it's just the difference when I was a teenager, I just saw both sides. And that's when I was standing in this park and I realized this is the world we're living in.
yeah,
And that was kind of hard to accept in the beginning, but it had to be that way because Skin, my imaginary friend, he told me about that way before when I was a child, but I never got it.
oh yeah,
I never saw it. And when I got older, all those stories got more horrible and horrible. And I was reading about it in the newspaper, and I just recognized that this is just the world we're living in.
yeah. The reason I asked that is like, because when I was growing up, I grew up in the Detroit area,
Hmm.
and there's, because of the movie 8 Mile, there's the famous 8 Mile
Hmm.
Road. And what that meant to me when I was growing up is, that was, and 8 Mile is a long road in Michigan.
Hmm.
And what that meant, it was a border between black neighborhoods and white neighborhoods.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when I was growing up, there was, a lot of, what, people were, I was getting this feeling that, okay, those, the black people that are on the other side, they're bad people, they're not to be trusted, blah blah
Hmm.
blah. And as a little kid, even I didn't believe that. I'm like, uh no, like,
No,
uh
yeah.
there has to be good people over there. There And the more I grew up and found out that there was like music being made, amazing music being made on the other
Hmm.
side of 8 Mile, so many other things, I was like, no, there has to be, really, amazing people on that other side.
Of
And
course, yeah.
there's always circumstances that led to whatever you're saying about them. Like,
Hmm.
I didn't have this big, at an early age, I just didn't have this bigoted attitude towards them.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
like, there has to be more of a story about why something is so negative
Exactly.
in
Exactly.
a
Like,
city.
when I grew up, like when I read about the Second World War, for example, that was something I was super interested in because that's what you just said. People told that other people are bad and people just believed it, like they fighted each other because someone told them this is bad, they're bad, you know. And that when it comes to this, like I was just always super interested in it. But I never experienced it that way. And I don't really like to talk about my private life, but I never had this experience as a child, like you had, for example. I just had this when I was a teenager, when I saw that. That was the only experience I made with this. But you know, how can I say that? When I was a child, I was into books and reading, and I was alone a lot, or I was with my imaginary friend, of course. But I was always hiding in a dark place, still am.
Yeah.
So yeah. So luckily I never made those experiences like, you know, with like friends, or that people around me were violent or something like that. So, but I read about it in the newspaper and in books, and I recognize that this is really happening.
Right. Currently, you recently released the Michelle Carter song. It was the second single for Chapter 3 following Columbine, and something that I read about this third chapter is that you're kind of tackling this belief that those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it.
Yes,
and that's something that I fully believe, and that our systems, it doesn't matter if it's government, prison, education, whatever, is set up to capture that people who don't care about the past or don't know about the past are gonna fall into these traps that the system already has set up. And that's why a lot of times I'm very critical about people. It doesn't matter if it's government or just culture and music and everything, that you should know where you're coming from in whatever you're doing. Kind of like, what's the idea behind that sort of thinking?
It's the idea to get people into thinking. I mean, Columbine, for example. I mean, have we really learned from Columbine? Did we? Have we? No, we didn't. And that's bothering me. It makes me super, super mad, because it's happening all the fucking time. No one is changing a thing. And that's what I want to say is like, start to question things. Not just believe what people tell you, when they're telling you like gun law is great, then you're like, yeah, gun law is great, or I mean, it's in everybody's interest to actually learn from the past, but somehow we don't. And I want to remember people, not to sound grotesque, but I try to remember, or I want people to remember that this is happening, and it's still happening, and we have to change something. It's about mental health, it's about gun law, it's about bullying in school, it's about listening to kids, it's about, especially with Michelle Carter. I don't want to say that no one was listening, but it feels like no one was listening. No one was actually communicating, like, did they really, like, the mother of Conrad Roy, was she aware of it? I don't know. Did Michelle told his mother that he's suicidal? No, she didn't. So there was no communication. And that's something as well, like, if we don't communicate, we won't learn. We won't, move forward, do better. And that's what I want to say. And it's also, I mean, with Jim Jones, this quote doesn't just fit chapter 3. It also fits chapter 1 and chapter 2. I just came up recently with it because I was like, I need to explain people that I'm not glorifying it. I want to make people think, and that they're going to have a discussion about it and talk about it and maybe learn something from it,
Yeah.
But I really don't want to sound grotesque. I'm not a teacher here. I'm a storyteller. That's who I am. But I want people to remember the past. Yeah. Because it feels like we don't remember, or we just don't want to remember, we try not to remember, and that's kind of sad.
And sometimes with communication, like just communicating can save a life or
It is. It
change
can,
change the
absolutely.
direction of something, you know?
Hmm. And I really do believe that, I don't know if you remember when Marilyn Manson was asked in Bowling for Columbine. He got asked by Michael Moore, what would you have, like, what would you say to Eric and Dylan? What would you say? And he was like, I wouldn't say anything. I would listen. Maybe this could have saved lives. I don't know. Maybe. And also with Michelle Carter, maybe if she would have had the guts to actually go to his parents or get help, he would be still alive. And communication is is so important. And now we have we have all this technology right now. We can actually, we have smartphones, we have iPads, we have
Yeah.
laptops,
Yeah.
we have Skype, we have FaceTime. We can, there's no, there's like, how can you say that? That there's like no excuse to be like, oh, we can't talk. Yes, we can. We have all those tools, but we still don't talk. So what is this, And when you look at certain teenagers today, I remember I asked the kid, so she was 12 or 13 years old, and I asked her, so do you FaceTime a lot? And she was like, no, we just do Snapchat. And I was like, what do you do with Snapchat? And she was like, yeah, we just text and send pictures. And I was like, so you don't talk to each other? And she was like, no, that's not a common thing. We don't do that. And I was like, oh, wow. And that was an issue when I was a teenager as well, that it was always an issue. And maybe that's too far gone with the topic, but I don't know if you know Pink Floyd, the Division Bell,
Yeah.
the album. That came out 1994, I believe. And the topic or the idea of this album was that communication would actually solve a lot of problems. That was 1994. We're still talking about the same fucking problem.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
if you don't just talk about, what's going on in your head, it just builds up and builds up and you start creating a narrative in your mind that doesn't exist.
Exactly. And I feel like that the world taught us to actually, carrying our problems with ourselves, to keep it to ourselves. Don't be weak. Don't, you know what I mean? Like, this is how I grew up as well. Don't tell someone that you're weak, and then it's like really hard to actually talk about your issues, is because you're like, are they going to listen, or are they going to, tell you like you're crazy or whatever,
Yeah, or
So,
joke about it, or you.
mhm. Yeah, joke about it and laugh about it, and then you're not getting taken seriously, and then it's even harder to talk. So it's a problem from both sides, the listener and also the one telling you something. You know what I mean? Like the communicator and the listener. I feel like there's a problem there sometimes as well. People don't listen and people don't communicate.
Yeah, like,
I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it, but that's just my experience so far in life.
oh no, no, I totally. That's like my experience too. Where, and even times when you think someone's listening, they're just waiting
Mm.
to talk. You know.
Yeah, they're already like making up something in their head to like answer or give you like a speech or whatever, but you feel like they're listening, but actually they don't. They just wait, as you said, for the moment so they can speak again.
Yeah, and all of this kind of goes to, and all facets of life, especially with, we're definitely in another phase of the civil rights movement, Black Lives
Hmm.
Matter.
Exactly.
We're dealing with more uh gay rights, and for the LGBTQ community, there's even worker rights is even
Hmm.
sparking up these days. And
Also women standing up now,
yeah.
and this is the change we need, I feel like.
Yeah, and the thing is that with that, you need to listen. You need to be an
Hmm.
ally. You don't. Not everybody needs to be the center of attention, but at the same time,
Hmm.
there's people, especially like your regular white guy that just needs to be an ally and listen and use
Hmm.
their platform to be like, yo, you should listen to these people over here. They got
Yeah.
something they want to get off their chest. And
Hmm.
the more that people are able to get their stories out, the more progress that could happen.
Exactly. Exactly. The more communication, like the more conversations we have, the better, you know?
When you're tackling all these different stories from the past,
Mm.
you know how do you start to like research? you know at what point are you like, okay, I did enough research, like we can actually start making
There's
a
there's actually never enough research, to be fair. There is never enough research. And I suffer from ADHD, so sometimes it's really hard for me to um when I research stuff, then it's like everything seems important to me,
yeah.
because I can't decide what is less important than the other information. So, but to go back to your question, um, because I was so interested in true crime in my early age, or early age, do you say early age? Yeah. Um, I investigated so many cases, and I have a notebook where I write down my thoughts. And Michelle Carter, for example, was a really new case, and I stumbled across it a few years back. And how do you say that? It stuck with me. And when a case stuck with me, I have to write about it. But I have so many cases in my notebook I want to write about, but it doesn't stuck with me that hard as maybe another case like Michelle Carter or Jim Jones. Um, but I feel like there's never in I can't do like enough research. How can you say that? It feels like even when I write the song, I'm still researching.
Right.
And then I feel like maybe I need to research this information a bit more just to be clear in the lyrics. But I have to, like, father sometimes tells me, dude, just have to stop now. We just have to keep working on that fucking song.
Right.
and I'm like, dude, I still have one book left. And he was like, dude, your whole fucking notebook is full of informations. What else do you need to read about? But that's just me. So yeah, I yeah, it's a long research sometimes.
And how do you sort of pare down all this information into like a 4-minute song and all of
That's
that?
super tricky. That's like the hardest part, to be fair. That's a pain in the ass, to be fair. Like, as I said before, ADHD makes it super hard to actually, you know, decide which information is more important than the other. So I want to, so in the beginning, I struggled and I had like two or three um, A4 sites full of information. And then father told me, dude, this is too long. We have like a 15-minute song at the end if you want to sing about all of this. So I had to learn to actually, scale it down a little and really focus on what actually works for me. To explain you this is like we make the music or we create the music, we drone or we just jam, we vibe to a sample or whatever father makes. And then what comes up in my mind, the first thing of this case is what I'm going to sing about. The first, like in Jim Jones, I was like, just drink it, drink it, drink it. I was like, fuck, I need that. And then I started to actually create the lyrics with all the informations I had. Or with Tyler Hadley, I was like, oh, hey mom, can I? No. And I was like, that's kind of cool. I'm going to just vibe with this and the informations I have. I don't know if it's understandable for you what I'm saying, but this is how the lyrics um, came to be. Or uh, yeah, that's how I write the lyrics and the music. but I had to scale it down. In the beginning, it was too long, too much information.
Like with all that information, is there any
Yeah.
information that maybe is not in the song but then ends up in the video?
Actually, a lot, to be fair, a lot because when I write a concept with tally hole, or when I write a song, I always do like a mood board with the colors I see for the case, or the picture I see for the case, or yeah. So the concept is always different than the song itself. Actually, it's a different vibe, and I want to keep it different because it's just how it works for me. I have a mood board and I have the lyrics, and those two things are separated from each other. And but what is super important is that we stay true to facts, in the video, because people understand could how can I say that in a nice way? So people don't get it wrong.
Right.
Yeah. But if I have to, if there's one video like where I have like informations in what I don't have in the lyrics, it just fits, but when I start working on it with the concept of the video and the lyrics, it's always different for me, because the mood board starts different than the lyrics.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense to you, but
Oh no, it does. It does. When it
yeah.
when it comes to the videos, you're still there in the middle of all that. What
Yeah.
is what is your part in the video? Like, because
Um,
you're putting yourself in those scenarios too.
yeah. With Gary Heitnick, for example, I'm the one looking through a camera into the case. So I'm always the storyteller. I'm just appearing because I'm the storyteller. I'm not saying that the case is good or bad, or that the Tyler Hadley, for example, was a good guy or a bad guy. Obviously, he was a bad guy, but whatever. I'm in the video as a storyteller, as a oh wow, how do you say that in yeah, storyteller.
Kind of like a narrator.
Yeah, and there, how do you say that?
Narrator.
Yes, exactly. This is what I am in the videos. Yeah. I want to show the story to people, and just also with Michelle Carter, for example, because it's just a lyric video, and it's just actually me and the dancer in the video and father. I wanted to express it with my facial expressions as well, to tell the story, but I'm not acting, or I'm not how do you say that, impersonating Michelle Carter. I'm just skinned, trying to express the feeling I have when I was actually writing Michelle Carter.
With each of these songs, you like you said, you have all this information, and taking like Michelle Carter for example, since it's the newest single, what like what did you put into that song? What is the centralized thing? What's like the centralized theme that you sort of took from that case that you're able to put into that song? What was that angle?
Um, I wanted to focus on this case because it's like an unlike case to any other case I did so far. And it's also crime changed over the years. Like this case happened over smartphones, or because of texting. And when I wrote the song, I focused on her text messages. I included her, like the real words she used into the lyrics, because it helped me because I never really fully understood why this case happened, and I think we will never understand. But the text messages gave me something to hold on to write the lyrics, and that was the main focus on it. I wanted to focus on those messages, and also because it's such a different case to any other case I did so far, you know?
Yeah.
Is that a good answer to your question?
Oh, definitely, definitely,
Okay,
definitely.
good.
When you're going through all these cases, this is like really heavy material. Does it affect you? Is there sort of any sort of ways that you take care of your mental health while digesting all of this?
You know, writing about it is my therapy, to be fair. Writing is my therapy. Writing it down, um, creating my mood boards, going to the studio with Father, that's actually therapy to me. And I always feel much lighter when I get out of the studio with Father, and I'm like, oh, I'm so happy we were writing about it, or we could, or I could get it off my chest. I try that. It's hard actually to actually separate yourself from those cases, because obviously I get really emotional when I investigate those cases. For example, Jim Jones. I was listening to this 40 minutes audio tape where he's preaching, and then you hear little babies screaming because they injected the flavor aid cyanide into their mouth, and you listen to those people like they're crying and screaming. And when I was listening to that, I was crying. It's like that was, and it made it super hard for me to sleep for the next few weeks, because it weighted really heavy on me, because it's, all those cases, I just try to not let it get to me too close, but sometimes it's really hard to separate it, from my private life, if I can say it that way.
Yeah.
Because I'm investigating those cases day by day, and I spend 24/7 on those cases. So this is the main focus I have in my life, and I want this focus. And I just had to find a way, so when I go back to bed at night, that I can like shut it off. But it's so hard to do. It's so hard because it's super emotional as well, But to write about it and to go to the studio and talk to Father about it, because he's the person I trust the most with, those cases as well, and with my thoughts. And he's my therapist. Writing music is my therapy, and that's what helps me to sleep at night.
Has there, through doing all of this, there's definitely that toll that it takes on you that you were just speaking about. But has there been any sort of positive, influence into it? Have you felt more empowered as a person, as a woman, more confident in any ways? What's the positives?
Absolutely.
What's the positives of sort of like dealing with all of this?
The positive thing, I think it was really empowering for me to actually do what I wanted to do for a very long time, and to be taken seriously by Father. That empowered me a lot, because he was the first one believing in my idea. Everyone was laughing at me, and I remember one producer, he told me, "You're a woman, you can't do that." And I was like, what? Fuck, what? Why can't I do it? Why not? And that was super frustrating, in the past, that people tried to pull you down and be like, what you're doing is shit, you can't do that, and you better just sing, love songs. And I was like, no, I don't want that. And it was super empowering for me to just find another person believing in this idea. And now we created this whole Skynd team, people like the management, the whole team believing in this. This is the most empowering thing. And then to see that people actually like what I'm doing and understand it, that's the best thing of it all. That I created like a community, or I have supporters who are fully believing in this. And that's
you have fans that make art, fan art and stuff for it. And I'm
exactly exactly. It's good that you just pointed it out. Like the fan art thing was that was super emotional to me, that to see people starting to drawing skin, drawing or even doing face makeup and recreating your look on Halloween. And that was also something that made me so happy to see, because when I started that project, I thought that there's going to be a big backlash, that people are going to be like, you're fucking crazy. But
Right.
that didn't happen, because people understood and people were on my side, because they were like, or, even when people comment underneath your video and they're like, oh, I didn't know, she's a girl, she's interested in true crime, I'm interested in true crime, I'm a girl too. So, oh my God, I'm not alone with this. And
Yeah.
this is so great to feel that you're having a community supporting you, listening to your music and fully understand what you're actually trying to say. But yeah, that was, to me, that's like the best part of it all. It's empowering. It makes you super confident. It makes me more like, I say that like I never had this much of confidence in my life before. And now with all of this, it's growing each day, and I'm super thankful and grateful for that.
Yeah, it's great to hear. When you know, I checked out a lot of previous interviews of yours, and one thing that I always you always said about this project and everything that you kind of tackle is that all of us, every single one of us, has those impulses
Yeah.
to do something horrible, to commit a crime,
Hmm.
to do these things that people are talking about in these cases that you tackle. And that really stuck out on me because years ago I was in this very terrible relationship with this woman. She was
Hmm.
very abusive to me, like both like
Hmm.
mentally and and emotionally and everything.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
through that, there was times when, like, for the first time in my life, I was getting those initial impulses about like stealing and
Hmm.
hitting her and um doing
Hmm.
all these different horrible things that I would never do, but I was feeling those impulses. She
Hmm.
drove me to those impulses. And
Hmm.
so when you say that, like, I'm like, oh yeah, I totally believe that.
I do believe that, like it's also what I say in my bio as well. Like we all um, conceal something behind the earthly facade that we show to the world. We all do. We all need a certain trigger to become, I would say, bad, to maybe be able to do inhumane cruelties. And I believe, we were never been born bad. No one is born bad, but the world and the different influences make us to this. What I want to say, it's like, as you just said, with your past relationship, she was the trigger that leads you to those thoughts. It needed a certain trigger.
Yeah.
It needed something for you to become that way, because I believe you're not a bad person. Not at all. But when you have those thoughts, that's where I'm happy that you actually, how you say that you felt like this is wrong, like
Yeah.
you recognized that this is not you. But so many people, they just like react um how you say that, on impulses.
Yeah.
They don't think anymore. And I'm happy that you got out of this horrible relationship and got out of it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. No, but I really do believe that, you know, um, we're all able to do inhumane cruelties. We're we're all able to do that, and it just needs a certain trigger, and that's what I truly believe. I truly do believe that.
Yeah, and I was just talking, I was just talking about this with in another interview with this hip hop artist OC, and we were talking about just taking losses in life, and it isn't bad to take losses. It just how do you react at that time?
Right,
What do you do
exactly.
next?
Yeah. It's how you react on it. It's how you if how you handle the situation, you know? It starts with you and it ends with you, you know?
When it all comes down to everything, what do you hope the your audience gets out of this project that you're doing?
You know, when people tell me that, for example, they never heard of Jim Jones or Jonestown, and they listen to my music and then they do their own research, that is what I want people to do. I want people to maybe have a conversation about it, talk about it, investigate it, understand it, and also I that's what I aim for, is that people understand that I'm not glorifying those cases. I'm not glorifying those serial killers, not at all. I'm just pointing a finger on it to make people not forget that this is happening and it happened, and also not forget the victims. It's easy to talk about a killer, but we all like forget the victims, you know. And I just want people to start investigating, reading about those cases, and maybe find a connection to their own life. You know, maybe they're in a cult right now and they don't know that they're in a cult, and maybe they listen to Jim Jones and they're like, "Fuck, this is what I'm living in right now." I don't know. I don't want to sound funny about it, but
No,
it's,
I
you know,
understand where you're like, oh, this sounds very similar to what I'm dealing with right
exactly,
now.
exactly. Like, oh, I got brainwashed. Oh, fuck. You know, maybe that's too much, but this
No,
is
no,
what I would.
because like there's a lot of things like there's like that relationship that I just brought up. There's still things that I'm learning
Mm,
about that relationship that I didn't realize was going on.
mm, mm-hmm,
And like so like when you put that out there like that, oh yeah, definitely you want to, be able to use these cases as a way to maybe people learning more about themselves.
exactly, exactly this. Yeah. You just put it better than I just put it, but that's exactly what I wanted to say. Yeah.
And it's really and what's really cool too is that um aside from the the visuals and the stories that I do see that you like really like to connect with your community, and you have like just even like you get the fan art, but then also you kind of do you have your own art that goes back with a lot of the merchandise that you do. You have like the
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
dolls and like the masks and stuff like
mm-hmm.
that. What was sort of like the point of actually having products and your own art to be able to give back to your fans out there?
I just love to do it. I just love to make them happy as well. You know, if they want that, I do that. You know, if that's what they request, then I feel like I want to do that. I want to give that back to them, you know, because I mean, in the end, Skinned is only as long as like, or Skinned is successful because of them and not because of, obviously also because of us, but you know what I mean. You know, they're listening to my music, they're buying my merch, they're doing what they want to do to actually support me. And when I came up with the father mask, I asked Father, what do you think about that? Because, you know, the first father mask, you know, I did myself as well. We had to come up with something. So I made this father mask by myself. So, and I had so much fun actually creating this. And I love creating. I love being creative and also work with my hands, you know, do the stitching, do the painting. And so this is what I wanted to give back, you know. And I just really like to do it as well. It's also while COVID, it was really hard to pass time. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
time was, oh, it was horrible. Like I couldn't go on stage and I couldn't really do what I wanted to do. So I started just creating things. Like I started painting, I started doing father masks, and then I was like, why don't I just sell it and give that to my community or to my supporters? And if that's what they want, then sure, I'll do it.
When it comes to, the father mask or your just look in general, what are you trying to, what are you trying to show with your look? The face paint, the headdress, just the clothing. What are you trying
Um,
to show?
I'm not trying to show anything. It's just, the makeup, they came to be while like I was dreaming about my makeup. That's no joke. Like I dream about makeup and I dream about clothing and I dream about the style. And then in the morning I just wake up and I'm like, oh, that's actually a kind of a cool makeup. So I just try it out, and it's not a message actually. It's just my creativity. There's no message behind it. I maybe some people listening to it now, they're gonna be like, oh no, that's sad. But it's actually not as interesting as it maybe look like. It's like it's just how I want to look. Like that's just yeah.
Well, in while we wind down this interview, like are we ever, are you gonna ever release the music on a physical form? Are we gonna get a vinyl of your music?
Maybe, maybe. I can't fully answer that one, but it's a surprise. So,
Oh, oh,
so just be patient.
all
So
right,
there's
cool.
something coming, but I can't talk about it right now.
Hey, as long as you're thinking about it, I'm cool with that because I definitely would like a vinyl release of uh,
In the beginning, it was just like, what do I want to do? Do I want to do an album? And I was like, no, I'm not just gonna throw out 13 songs and then they're like done. I just didn't want it that because it takes me so long to actually write a song, and then just to throw out 13 songs on an album didn't make sense to me,
for
you
what you
know.
do. It would be like information overload.
Exactly. It's exactly this. So then in the beginning, I thought, as I said before, the backlash. And then this didn't happen. And then people started to request vinyl or CD or whatever. And I was like, if people want that, maybe we should do that. But I don't know.
You're
I don't know.
just wait until you've like told enough stories, I guess,
Yeah,
and then do something, and it would.
exactly. That might be a good idea.
Yep.
Yeah.
As we close out this interview, is there any final thoughts that you have, just about that you want to put out there?
Keep your inner animal tamed by creating music, drawing. I don't know, whatever you want to do, but just keep your inner animal tamed and don't forget the past. Learn from it. Read books, read more, get into true crime cases. I don't know. I mean, all I want to say is like, keep your inner animal tamed. That's all.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Where can people go online to get more information about Skinned and everything that you're doing?
So we have the website skinned music.com. Then you can find me on Instagram, skinned underline music, also Twitter. I'm on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, whatever you wanna, whatever floats your boat, you will find me there.
Thank you for listening to the Fresh is the Word podcast, hosted and produced by myself, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier, empowered by Anchor at anchor.fm/Fresh is the Word. Fresh is the Word theme music provided by Steve O. You can find more of his productions at imsteveo.bandcamp.com, and that's EYEAMSTEVEO.bandcamp.com. Fresh is the Word is available on all major streaming platforms. Please rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. If you want to support Fresh is the Word, please consider pledging via Patreon at patreon.com/freshistheword. Follow Fresh is the Word on social media on Twitter at Fresh is the Pod, on Instagram at Fresh is the Word Podcast, and join the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Fresh is the Word. For more information about Fresh is the Word and our other podcasts, Breaking Records and Renaissance Soul, and a collection of pop culture articles and reviews, please visit freshesthepodcast.com. Thank you for listening and your support. Goodbye and good night.
Fresh is the word.